Hello Internet and welcome to this day in history for the 3rd of December. Where are we today? Well, we go back to 311 AD. And we're not actually doing an event today. Well, it is kind of an event, but it's more an event that precipitates a retrospective, if you will, because it was on this day that the Emperor of Rome, Diocletian, died. Now, I have mentioned Diocletian a couple of times, so I'm sure many of you will have some idea of who I'm talking about, but considering just how towering his effect was upon the Roman Empire and in fact, in some ways, upon just the ancient world, I figured it might finally be time to give you a quick update on Diocletian, who he was, and why his death was so relevant. First of all, as I believe I have mentioned on some occasions, Diocletian himself was really the second founder of the Roman Empire. The empire had had its glory years under the adoption emperors, if you want to call them that, in the mid-2nd century, people like Antoninus Pius, Hadrian, Trajan, and Marcus Aurelius, but the last 100 years before 284 AD, which is the year that Diocletian stepped onto the plate, had been difficult for Rome. They had still sort of managed to keep their outermost boundaries, although all of them were under pressure in the Middle East, in North Africa, along the Rhine border, along the Danube border, almost any of them. Not to mention the fact that for 100 years they have had about, 40 or 50 emperors. As you can imagine, they didn't last long at the time. They got put off the throne almost as easily as they got on it, and of course Rome had been suffering from such an instability in the imperial government. Diocletian attempted to change all that. First of all, he ruined all of his opponents, took the throne as someone who was almost completely impossible to throw out again because he was just that effective and that powerful, and then he reorganized the imperial government completely. He figured that the empire had simply grown too big to be ruled by a single man. Not to mention, of course, that a lot of very powerful men that would necessarily become powerful, since no single man could rule it and would depend on other powerful men, they would attempt to take the throne because, well, it was the imperial purple. He organized a 4-man government with 2 equal but senior emperors and 2 lower but also equal emperors, the junior emperors, more specifically 2 Augusti and 2 Caesars. The Augusti were to perform the primary rule of each one half of the empire, with the Caesars then ruling one half of the one half, while also being the primary military commander. That way, the imperial government could be more immediate. The emperor, as it was, could stay in his own region instead of having to communicate over so long distances, and it would also give powerful men a chance to actually gain power before they turned the realm into massive civil war. Now, of course, some might say that he was fairly naive in thinking that this was a system that would lead to anything other than even more powerful civil wars, as now it was actually legal emperors going against legal emperors over either petty feuds or who was going to get the overall power. But because Diocletian's prestige and respect, or the respect people had for him, was so great, the entire system actually worked during his reign. For his entire reign, Rome was capable of regaining its strength. Rome could rebuild its forces, could re-establish successful and effective governance, and prepare for the next onslaught of whatever would come up. In fact, even after he had retired, yes, an emperor who retired to his estates and then didn't bother in politics again, the one time he did come out of a secluded life was basically to tell a couple of feuding emperors to stop it, this is not the way I wanted it to go, at which point they basically said, yes, massa, and did what he wanted, because he was just that important. Now, even before his death, the system had mostly fallen apart, and of course, as we know, it was while he was even still alive that Constantine the Great eventually defeated everyone else and took the title. But even he kinda sorta stuck to a lot of the principles that Diocletian had put down, and if nothing else, the years of Diocletian's rule and the years of Constantine's rule following a lot of Diocletian's, shall we say, principles, this was really really what saved the empire for probably another 2 centuries, and allowed the Franks to eventually grow so strong that they could take over the empire in the west, such as it was, and of course maintain the empire in the east, rather than having all of Europe degenerate into absolute chaos and all-over warfare. That was Diocletian's legacy. A man who rose from, well, almost nothing to save the Roman Empire and become its second founder. So yes, his death on this date in 344, 3rd of December, was absolutely something very important. Well, I hope this has been of interest to you. Until next time, I have been the Sage, and I wish you all a very happy day.